In this video, we're going to create an Interchange Plus program from scratch. Click on your profile, click on Manage Programs. Up at the top, you can click on New Program, or if you scroll down and see a template program that fits your needs, you could choose that one. We're going to create a new program. So we put in the name of our processor. We'll call this XYZ processor, and then we want to name our program. And so you could just call it Interchange Plus would be a good name for it. Next, we need to put in the volume requirements. So in this case, I'm actually going to leave the volume requirements at 0 and unlimited. And what that means is no matter what volume the merchant is doing, this program is going to show up in our system for them. And then lastly, down here, we have the residual split. I'll leave it here at 50%. So let's assume you're getting 50% of the profit on this particular account. Click Save. Now, this is going to give us information here by default. So by default, it always is going to load up some information here that's an Interchange Plus merchant. So the first thing you're going to notice up here is we're going to notice the volume basis points of markup. So this is where you want to set your default, your minimum, and your cost. Now, my recommendation here would be to set your default a little bit higher and put your minimum as low as you're willing to go. So the default, with that default amount, that means that's what's going to show up by default when you first load this program up. So let's say it's 50 basis points, and let's say your cost is maybe 5 basis points, and let's put a minimum of 15. So what this means is that when you try to run a quote and get a proposal using this program, it is first going to give us 50 basis points of markup, but it will allow you to change it all the way down to 15. And I like doing that because maybe you show them a significant savings with 50 basis points of markup, and then you don't need to take it down any further. Or maybe you don't show a lot of savings and it's a higher volume merchant and you need to break it down and come down with some lower ones. So let's go ahead and click on Save. Okay, and so now you've got your 50 basis points of markup. The next here is your per item fee. Click on that. And again, same thing here. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Same thing here. We can click on Edit, and we can set our default. Again, let's set it a little higher. Let's set it at 10 cents. Let's say we have a cost of maybe 4.5 cents, and let's set our minimum at 5 cents. So it's going to start us at 10 cents. Our cost is 4.5, so that's your Schedule A cost. Again, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But if you want to see what your residuals would be, you need to put the cost in there accurately. Then your minimum, and then you click Save. So now we have an Interchange Plus merchant at 50 basis points and 10 cents by default, but the software will allow you to change it all the way down to 15 and 5. Now next we have the same thing for American Express, per item fee, volume. Same thing for PIN debit. PIN debit by default does just have the per item. Now if you do have a PIN debit percentage or basis points you mark up PIN debit, go ahead and click on New Fee. And we're going to call this one PIN debit volume. The fee type is going to be down here, PIN debit volume. So this is going to show on all PIN debit volume. And let's put the basis points in. Let's say that you mark up PIN debit 30 basis points. Let's say there's a cost of 5 and a minimum of 5, something like that. So now we are marking up our PIN debit volume as well as our PIN debit per item fee. Now we have our monthly fees. Now again, let's say you look at these and say, well, we don't have a PCI monthly fee. Okay, click on Details, Delete, and that's it. And now that one's gone. I'm going to skip past this next section for just a moment and go down to the bottom section. Now there's a lot of fees here, but really this is just all part of the dues and assessments. So when you look at an interchange table, it's important to understand that interchange fees are actually charged by the banks. So they're not charged by Visa and MasterCard. Visa and MasterCard charge dues and assessments, and those come in the form of the Network Access Brand Usage Fee, or NABU, and the assessments here. Now, if you don't know what your assessments and Network Access Brand Usage Fees are, just leave all of these alone and you'll be fine. This is the true cost. Now, the reason that they're editable is because many processors have chosen to take some of their cost and potentially mark up the assessments a little bit to cover their cost of processing and things like that, or even generate a profit. So you can edit these fields, but it is not necessary unless your processor marks up the dues and assessments. So you just simply would want to ask them that. The last section here, and for Interchange Plus, it's very simple, but on some of the other pricing structures, it's not so simple, is the pass-through. These three categories are all pass-through. So the VMD or Visa, MasterCard, Discover Interchange, this is where you have your interchange. And so the default here is what percentage of the interchange are you passing through to the merchant on this particular cost structure? In this case, 100%. How much of it is cost? 100%. So let's use an example and say we have a merchant with $10,000 in volume, and let's say that they have $200 in interchange, okay, to make the math easy here. So basically what we're saying is that $200, we want to pass 100% of it through to the merchant. All 200 or 100% of that $200 is going to be taken away before we calculate residual because it's a cost. And that 100% is a minimum. And so it always has to be 100% that's passed through to the merchant. You can't decide to only pass through 50%. So let's use an example of one that's different than that, and we'll do it in another video, but a flat rate priced merchant. So what if you're pricing a merchant at flat rate? So you're charging them, let's say 2.75%, like say Square would do. Then you would actually change this 100% to 0%. So you would pass through none of the $200 to the merchant because you're charging them the 2.75%. You're not charging them interchange, but you would still have 100% cost. So the interchange is still taken away before you calculate your residuals. Okay? And then your minimum here would also be 0%. So the default and the minimum on these pass-through are pretty much always going to match exactly. There's a few cash discount situations where they might not, but as a general rule, those two sides match exactly. For Interchange Plus, we're done because we're passing 100% of it through, 100% is cost. So now we're done. And now what we can do is go back to our programs, and we now see our Interchange Plus down here at the bottom. Now, the only thing we might want to do is say, well, wait a second, we actually want that to be the default program where that's the one that we always see when we create a quote first. So let's click this plus arrow, and you can keep clicking that a few times here, and let's take it up to the top. So now you can see that we have the Interchange Plus program right up here at the top. Let's go ahead and click on quote, choose a quick service restaurant, put some basic numbers in here, 10,000 in volume, let's say 350 in fees, click create. And now the program that is being used for this one is the Interchange Plus program, as you can see right here, 50 basis points, 10-cent per item fee, $9.95 monthly fee. Now we could click on edit proposal, and you can see at the top the name of the program that's being used, but we could click on compare programs, and we could now choose a different program if we wanted to. Let's go back to our Interchange Plus proposal. We could also then click on the fees down here, and we can click edit. And now we might say, well, yeah, but we need to show a little bit more savings. So let's edit this. And for this particular merchant here, we're going to take it down to 30 basis points of markup. So as you can see, as long as I don't go below the minimums, I can go ahead and edit these. I could change the per item fee, and I might say, let's take that down to 8 cents, because again, we just wanted to show a little bit more savings. So even though you've already created everything, you can still go back in and make adjustments to that. Let's click on back, and let's click on the shareable link, which is going to take us back to the main page. And now we could send that via email, or we could edit the proposal, or we could click on the PDF, and we could download this information right here.